Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Robert Goss, and today we're going to be talking about the value of performing calibrations with a CMS and some of the other benefits that a solution is going to bring to your daily practices. So included with this, we're going to talk and cover a few of the biggest benefits that users gain when they move from a legacy process to a modern CMS system. Being that this is a very diverse audience, there's a lot of members joining us today. I'm going to stay very high level on this topic. Though you will find at the bottom of your screen or the top of your screen, there is a questions button. There's a button that you're going to be able to click to dive in there and ask any questions you may have during this presentation. Anything at all regarding to the calibration management system, ours, any of them in general, anything around, anything you can think of, just please ask a question and we'll get to it at the end of this. When we get into the agenda, you'll see that there are going to be, there is an area at the end of the presentation for us to go in and answer these questions. So I'm going to be going through these, answering as many as I possibly can in our allotted time. If there are any questions that I don't have a chance to answer, or I don't have the knowledge or the technical capability to answer that, you can expect a personalized email from me afterwards with an answer to that as well. With this recording, as I said, we're going to have a list of all those questions and all those answers posted alongside it. So you're not going to be missing out on anything. Great, so we'll go ahead and get started here. There we go. Cool. So I did get a chance to look at the everyone that signed up on this, and it looks like I have met and spoken with a lot of you, but a large group of you I don't think you've ever met me before. So again, my name is Robert Goss, and I've been a Prime Technologies employee for over 6 years now. And it's crazy to think it's been that long. But throughout this time, I've worked with companies of all sizes in all types of industries, both regulated and not regulated. And I've just worked with a lot of customers to help understand their specific pain points and how these are going to be resolved in the move to a modern day CMS, no matter whether they're coming from a paper system, an Excel-based system, an old legacy unsupported system, how we can solve these issues, bringing them into like a modern application. So, during this time, again, I've talked to hundreds, if not thousands of individual customers over my time here. And there's just been a lot of common pain points and a lot of common trends that a simple switch to a CMS will solve. So I just wanted to take this time today to kind of focus a little bit on that. Again, we're going to be staying pretty high level, but that's what the questions are for. And I'm also really happy to have a follow-up session with anybody over Zoom or a phone call, just to dive a little deeper in any of the items that we covered today. So this is going to be a little interactive. You're going to see a poll pop up on your screen, and this is just going to help me set the stage for the rest of this conversation. So it's going to say how are you guys currently managing your calibration management data, and all of that information. So yeah, perfect. It popped up here. So I'm going to give it a minute or so for you to go in and respond to this, and this will just kind of help me frame the rest of this conversation and have a better understanding of the audience. So I'll give you about a minute to fill this out, and then I'll wait, and the moderator should complete this afterwards, and I'll see the results. Give it another few seconds here. I know there are a lot of individuals. All right, it looks like we're getting the rest of the responses in. Perfect. All right, great. So yeah, got a lot of really good responses here. So it looks like a majority of you are using a modern CMS, which is helpful. We're probably going to be rehashing out and rediving in a lot of the important points that you are familiar with, diving into that. Though a lot of people here, I'm seeing legacy CMS, paper-based processes. But the second highest answer was Excel, Microsoft Excel. And that actually, this makes a lot of sense. This is something I see commonplace all the time, is if you're not using a more modernized system, something, more built specifically around calibration management. We see a lot of people who, in the past or currently are using Microsoft Excel, and it just might not be hitting all those buttons. It may not be, satisfying every bit of your need. And it may just be, having a lot of like waste and adding a lot of, unnecessary actions and work for you guys. So we'll definitely cover some of the enhancements over Microsoft Excel, as well as, just defining and rehashing a lot of the points that I think are most of you might find beneficial in a modern CMS, or things that you may want to dive a little deeper onto. Cool. So moving forward here. A few points that we're going to be covering today, and this is just a really high-level agenda. We'll dive a little deeper into it, but why perform calibrations? And, I assume we all know this. It's pretty straightforward, but I just want to make sure we're on the same, there's a lot of definitions around calibration. I want to make sure we're all aware of what we're talking about today. Then we'll get into what is a calibration management solution. Again, pretty standard, but I just want to kind of set the ground rules so that we all are on the same base for this discussion. Then we'll get into a little bit about the benefits of going paperless, which honestly, especially if you're using like Excel or paper or anything else today, it's a huge benefit to move away from this. We'll dive into that. Taking advantage of documenting calibrators, reporting and record keeping, staying current with regulatory compliance, integrating with other applications, and then we'll dive into the Q&A at the end there. Cool. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started with this. So first of all, why do we calibrate? And I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that most of you have some sort of idea or you fully understand this. But when I looked it up on the internet, the dictionary definition of calibration is the comparison of measurement values delivered by a device under test with those of a calibration standard of known accuracy. So you have a really accurate device and a not so accurate device. Use an extremely, usually a 4-to-1 ratio, but use the extremely accurate device in order to test and make measurements against that smaller device in order to determine and ensure that is actually functioning properly. So obviously calibrations are important for more than one reason, as we've listed here. Really the highest level, and I think for those of you who are, actually, creating products and your daily processes are directly involved with the output of, products, drugs, devices, things like that. Ensuring the quality and consistency of either you or your customers' products. It's one of the biggest reasons here. And, if there's returns or recalls or anything like that, it could fall back on you, and that's a big problem. Then we'll get into determining asset health and minimizing downtime. Pretty much, you just want to, understand the health of assets. If there's something where you need to make a repair or an adjustment or keep an eye on it, you're not going to understand the health or the level of functionality of that device if you're not accurately testing it and checking up on it. And then finally, just another point worth bringing up, and it's not relevant to everyone, but extremely relevant to those of you who are familiar with it, is following all regulatory requirements to ensure that you pass an audit when the time comes. Failing an audit can cause additional work, unnecessary headaches, and cost you guys a lot of money. I'm not sure if anyone here has ever been in a failed audit, or those of you who have been in audits understand the stress and pressure. And having an up-to-date, tailored, configured, and full CMS, it's really going to help you pass those audits as quickly as possible. So as I said, just kind of setting the context for the rest of this conversation is, what is a calibration management solution? What is a CMS? What are we talking about today? So a calibration management solution is any computerized system that is designed specifically to manage your asset calibration information. And while you're definitely going to see some key differences in functionality between the various vendors and solutions that are out there on the market, pretty much any basic CMS, it's going to provide the same level of solution. It's going to manage that asset and specification and result information. But then there's some other things that you're going to want to ensure that any CMS does. It's going to help you solve issues like difficulty managing your assets and calibration specifications. It might be difficult to understand exactly what needs to be tested and how to lay this out in Microsoft Excel or on paper or something like that. So a CMS is going to really go in there and help you break out what exactly needs to be tested and how do you know if this device is passing. Managing schedules and assigning tasks, pretty obvious in itself. Managing, organizing, and creating reports, metrics, or other certifications, certificates. The system's gonna be able to output information exactly as you need it, or be able to be, have these reports tailored to meet your specific needs, opposed to having to go in and run additional calculations and manually generate this information. And then there's going to be plenty of other problems solved as well by these. But again, for the sake of this conversation and what we're going to be talking about when we get into it, I want to just keep this extremely high level. Again, one-on-one conversations for more detailed, specific problems or issues, or just use the Q&A section, and hopefully we'll be able to get into your questions and answer those at the end of this. So diving into this, I think that we can all agree that the header of this slide in some sense or form is relatable, probably to all of us. But surprisingly, paper-based practices are still probably one of the most common scenarios along with Microsoft Excel that I see when working with new customers. So if they're not in a modern CMS system and they want to move away for some functionality reason or something, really most of the time or almost all the time, people are just trying to get away from those paper-based practices. So, and just something else I really wanted to get out there is with a CMS, you're going to be able to go either fully paperless, completely digital, never think about paper again, or you can still take a hybrid approach. And that's one of those things where, we've worked with a power plant I can think of out west where they were using the old index cards and everything was scrolled onto paper and it was just a mess. And the prospect of moving directly to a paperless system, it was just terrifying for them. It was going to be a shock to them. They didn't think there was going to be any adoption. And that's why, when we actually approached this, we took them in a longer stretched out plan where there was a plan to eventually go paperless, but we took more of a hybrid approach with worksheets and keeping paper in the mix where needed. And it ended up being pretty successful. So it's just one of those things where, even if you want to go fully paperless, you don't have to make that leap today. You can take that step by step. Now, diving a little bit back into, why people may want to get away from paper and some of the obvious things, you yourself might be running into is, first of all, retaining data. You see right there, it's extremely unreliable, expensive, and honestly just a waste of time and effort. And this is really talking about when you print out your certificates or your reports and you have to go file them away in a filing cabinet somewhere. Even if there's a specific individual assigned to this, like a data entry, data management person around that, finding a specific paper record in a pinch is just extremely unnecessary and stressful, really, when it comes down to it. It's just much easier to search. You can't search on a pile of paper. Record availability is going to, again, be something very, very important. Information is only going to exist in a single location. A paper worksheet can only exist in one place, where if it's digital, or if it's in a system, you're going to be able to access it from anywhere with, access or an interface to that database. So it just kind of helps you reduce inconsistencies in your worksheets, your practices, and all of that. Carrying paper records, again, this is just really, really a pain, especially when it comes to reviewing something or signing off or getting a signature or an acknowledgement or, an approval or anything like that. If you're using paper records, you're going to have it delivered to you, hand delivered to you, which is just obviously a big waste of time. And it's just something that's just outrageous, honestly, in my opinion, in this day and age where you really don't have to do that, especially if you work in a bigger plant with multiple buildings or something like that. It's just, a big time waste when you could just be using a digital system here. The last big thing, and again, it's going to be relevant only to, a certain percentage of you, but it's, for those of you that it is relevant, it's extremely important. It's surviving an audit. Now, we're going to talk about the audit process in a lot more detail later on, but if you ever had to shuffle paper down or track down a missing cert, it always just makes it much more difficult to pass, opposed to just being able in just a minor few seconds, pull up any historical record or anything like that too. Audits just are going to always be more stressful when you put unnecessary effort into locating and organizing your records. So, how do you get away from paper? You go paperless, obviously. We just covered a lot of the issues that you're probably facing today if you are using paper in your practices, and I know some of you are. You're at least familiar with these. But how is a CMS specifically going to assist with these issues? So getting started with scheduling here, obviously a calibration management solution is going to know when things are coming due. It can reschedule things based on completed tasks. There's integrations where you can automatically have things scheduled based on parent systems. And there's just a ton of other factors that can be configured or rolled into this, like end of month designations versus calibrate this on the exact same day, the 17th every year. There's a lot of detail we can get into on that. Work instructions like calibration specifications, checklists, understanding tolerances and pass fail. It's all just going to be right there at your fingertips and all interactable right there. Equally important to that is the data collection and the entry of data. So data obviously is going to be verified on the spot to ensure that there's no human error involved. And pass and fail are going to just be determined electronically right there. And in some certain scenarios too, this data entry portion will be able to be automated. And again, we'll get into that a little later on. Just running through the last of these, acknowledgement and sign-off workflows. Again, you can require peer reviews or multiple approvals if additional acknowledgement is required. But again, when you're thinking about it, this just solves a lot of the problem of tracking someone down and having them sign off something and scanning it back into a system, or just locating that person, when it's all just going to be there and they can be notified when something is requiring their specific signature right in there. And then the last thing I wanted to bring up is just the instant data retrieval. Again, it goes without saying, but sometimes you have to say it. This is going to ensure that any of your records are available at your fingertips immediately whenever you may need them. So far we've discussed a lot of the valuable information, but what calibration management solution is going to be complete without calibration management functionality? So by default, I think it's safe to assume that most of us understand that the system's going to track your basic needs like pass, fail, go, no go, the real basics. But I wanted to take this time to dive a little bit deeper into some of the more, advanced functionality and some of these things that you may want to consider beyond just that bare bones offering of just pass or fail. You may not require, may not understand what certain requirements are for your organization until you actually get there. So I want to just dive a little bit deeper into this. First of all, test specification functionality is going to be extremely important if you want to get the most out of your system. First of all, you're going to be able to build your test specifications exactly as required. Just by putting in basic information, like I want to put in my range, I want to put in my number of test points and my tolerances. The system's going to be able to automatically create that, build out your testing plan, build out all that information, and tell the technician exactly what they need to source and what readings they should be capturing. And it's going to do that automatically for you with no human error involved. Not only that is, you could be testing a manual gauge where you're using a hand pump and you're sourcing PSI and you're looking at the dial and you're taking a reading of PSI. That might be easy, but you may need some more advanced functionality where maybe you're doing like a smart transmitter and you're sourcing, a Celsius input and you're taking your readings out in a milliamp output or something. The system not only should, be able to handle that and account for that and display that, but it should be able to understand that, all right, when I'm sourcing 300 Celsius PI, 300 Celsius, I want to have exactly 20 milliamp output here. The system should be able to distribute all that and do all that for you. When we're talking about calibration needs here. There's a lot of other things too, but again, for the sake of time, we can dive into this later. Determining pass fail and tolerances and process limits, they're also extremely important. You're going to be able to do this by percentage of span, a plus or minus maybe, but then you're really just going to want to go in there and set high and low limits so that you can actually have alerts and items set off to tell you when values are failing and when things need your immediate attention. You'll also find out there when you do your research and such, most systems are going to allow you to set something called process limits or control limits, where you can have a band within a band too. And say, a technician takes a reading and it's not failing, but it's pretty darn close to failing. You may want to make sure that, all right, I want them to still get an alert to say, make an adjustment, repair this device, do something, take an action here because of this device is almost failing. So that may also be something that you want to look at in a system. A lot of the systems will have that functionality, but not all of them. So, and just kind of moving through a lot of this other stuff, any system is going to be able to perform math for you automatically. It is a computer system. Calculators are built into them. But then there are just different types of like functionalities and things that you're going to want to look in here. For example, a really good thing is you can see on the screen, actually, I have something around input tolerance. And this is, again, something that a lot of systems will have. But for example, say you're doing a pressure test and you have to hit 100.000 PSI right on. That can be really difficult without, hand manual tools and such like that. So you may want a system that will allow you to stray your inputs, deviate what you're actually sourcing, and then recalculate down the flow what the new pass fail should be based on what the technician is actually sourcing. And then in the example I have here, you can always set like a range or a gap that the technician is allowed to, stray or deviate from that nominal input. There's just a lot of other things where the system is going to understand what you're doing and recalculate based on values that you're actually sourcing, not just what it's expecting you to source. And the last thing right here too is multiple test point groups. This gets into a little bit more of complex functionality, but say there are devices like a relative humidity device or a mass flow transmitter where there's multiple inputs on here, multiple types of tests, but they're all required for this single device to be calibrated. So you just may want to look for something that can handle, multiple types of tests and bundle all those into a single calibration event without, losing the auto calculation functionalities that you may see here. So again, there's a lot more we can get into, but for the sake of time, I want to stay as high level as possible. So more and more, we're definitely seeing customers that appreciate the ability to use the CMS to go beyond just the basic calibration functionality and provide the ability to document minor tasks or other activities that might be relevant to the testing process. This is a more uncommon feature, though it seems to be something that people are finding more and more beneficial as they start to consider the applications, especially when safety or maintenance instructions or inspections are critical or important to the customer. So if your CMS has the capabilities, and again, not all of them will, but definitely some of them will, you're going to be able to not just augment an existing calibration activity with additional tasks, like a visual inspection checklist or something like that, but you're going to be able to use the tool to track minor PM applications, other maintenance activities, or anything like that too. And then most of the time, and we're going to get into this in a little later too, but most of the time, these tasks and these checklists are going to be able to be downloaded to a documenting process calibrator, if you are using one, if you're familiar with those devices, in order to further enhance the calibration experience with those handheld devices. And again, just the last thing on this is it may not be a requirement for everyone, but it really seems to be something where when someone steps into this, they may have no need for this and never even thought about this. But when they start playing around with this and they start learning about this functionality and not just our system, other systems, competitor systems too, it just ends up being something where they see a lot of value in here and a lot of, many different use cases for this type of functionality. So it's definitely something that you want to consider when looking at a CMS. So I did, hint that I was going to be bridging into this a little bit. But again, this may not be relevant for everyone, but for those of you that are using these documenting calibrators, I think it is extremely relevant. So DPCs, documenting calibrators, such as here we have the Fluke 754 and the 729 listed and shown. But these are what we call handheld process calibrators that can store your calibration specifications and then source these inputs while simultaneously capturing the readings, and then save all of your results right on this device. So then these results are then going to be able to be pushed back up into your CMS and then used to generate the calibration certificate or complete an event or anything like that. It's just a tool where you can take calibration information offline, go perform it out in the field, and then save all those results and pump it right back into the system, so you never have to type any of your as found or as left information back into the database. So these devices, they really function great on their own, but the capabilities of these are going to be greatly expanded upon when you're sourcing test specifications directly from the CMS and then downloading all of your results to the CMS afterwards for safe storage. Additionally, the calibration management solution will provide functionality to the DPC that was not initially part of the device. Basically what I'm thinking of here is those maintenance checklists or those types of things. That's usually something you won't see on a handheld documenting calibrator. But then when you use a CMS, that you can send those down to the calibrator in order to have additional functionality where maybe I'm doing a calibration and then I have a checklist and then I finish my calibration. It's all going to be right there at your fingertips on these devices out in the field. So, and just worth putting out there too, again, a CMS, a calibration management solution, is definitely not required in order to utilize the documenting process calibrator, but it's really hard to argue that it doesn't do a great job of enhancing the experience with the calibrator there. So diving a little deeper into some other things here, you might be looking at the CMS to simply be a tool that allows you to generate reports, but some of you might be also looking to utilize the solution as a system of record. So this means that the database will exist as your primary data source and be relied upon during an audit. Also, I wanted to keep this discussion a little more generic. So I have added, aspects of both to the rest of this the slide and everything. But again, you may not be using it to that level or that degree, but then it still is just a great tool to generate these PDFs and generate your certificates and everything else. So yeah, and as I have listed it here, regardless of those requirements, the traceability and data retention are going to be extremely important when it comes to your CMS. So a good example is that a typical CMS will not only provide your calibration certificates and generate these for you, but it's also going to be able to include the test instrument that was used, automatically apply NIST traceability information to your test standards based on what's, or to your certificates based on what test standard was used. Then you'll have reverse traceability, where if I ever need to go back and say I have a faulty test standard and I need to see what, what calibrations or activities I've completed with this device over the past 6 months, just 2 button clicks and you'll have a full list of that. All the system, all the information, it's all communicating with one another. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of reports that are included with these systems right off the bat, but you're also going to be able to go in here and have custom reports built. There's just a lot of functionality, regardless what system you're using when it comes to reporting and the data output that you're putting, is coming out of it. You know, reports are going to be generated and accessed whenever needed. And anyone with the ability to load them, or anyone's going to have the ability to access these, just as long as they have an access point or, you know, a bridge into the database to be able to pull this in. Maybe they're a user in the system and they just need to log in through any computer anywhere. And again, on top of that, there's a lot of raw data that's being stored in the system. So why waste this? Any CMS at all, literally anyone, will be able and should be able to have new reports built, whether you're presenting metrics to management or just trying to understand your own areas of improvement. That's something I have never seen, is the ability to not customize reports within a CMS. So getting through the last few slides here, another really big thing, and again, this is extremely important to a lot of you, and so I definitely wanted to focus. And this is probably one of the biggest reasons that we see people move away from whatever legacy practices they may be using into more of a modern CMS. It's really just, you know, keeping up with regulatory compliance here. So based on configuration and documented practices, the basis of regulatory compliance is going to be followed by default. Pretty much you are always set up for success as long as you've come in here and you've set a system up properly and you've been using it as intended. You're going to be good to go and you'll never have to worry about an audit again. On top of that, all required records are going to be searchable and easily accessible. And you can literally, you know, I've seen this through a customer, but you can deliver on an auditor's request in literally a matter of seconds. You need any cert from any date or anywhere, it's literally all just going to be right at your fingertips. For those of you that are in extremely highly or very highly regulated industries, you're going to want to ensure that the CMS is 21 CFR Part 11 compliant. You may also be required to perform a validation or user acceptance testing, which your CMS provider should be able to assist with. If it is a system that's going to be able to be used in a regulated environment, they're, you know, by default probably going to have a lot of experience in ensuring and setting that up, and, you know, going through whatever other services or activities need to be completed in order to ensure that it's functioning and compliant. On top of that, work history, audit trails, and other important information is going to be stored in just a very nice, concise, and readable format. So you're going to just be able to display anything that an auditor may request or be looking for, or just require from you. So just, you know, summarizing this slide, taking the stress out of an audit could be cause enough for the migration of a CMS. And, you know, if you've ever been in an audit with a system you're not confident in, you understand it can be, you know, some real problems and cause real issues. So just finishing up here, just the end of you know, these last few slides here. A CMS is likely going to be a smaller part of your larger practices. So if you have a related systems with similar information, it really only makes sense to integrate those solutions. So this is something we see very, very frequently all the time. But if you have systems like right here on the list, ERPs, CMMS systems, EAMs, LIMS systems, other reporting tools, or asset monitoring, you know, softwares, or, you know, applications like that, integrations are always available. They're always capable. It really just is something that you would want to talk with your CMS provider, your calibration management solution provider, and see what capabilities, what API tools they have, what experience they have with this. But pretty much, you know, we see these all the time with all types of systems. Whether you have like a large, you know, a large parent SAP system where it's really a master record. You're keeping all of your asset information in there, your schedules, it's generating work orders. But then it's not so good for actually completing calibration information. This is just a plain run-of-the-mill, most common example we see, where we'll do an integration with SAP and then have the assets synchronized so that the database is populated with those assets. You change a location or a status in that parent ERP system, automatically changed in the CMS system. The work orders are assigned and scheduled and then sent down into the CMS system for further delegation to a documenting calibrator or for completion through the user-friendly interface. These are types of things we see very frequently. You know, I could go on and on and on about asset querying, reporting, and just other use cases. We've done so many different types of integrations, but I'm going to just kind of leave this more open and ambiguous and allow you guys to come. If there is some other third-party system that you think might be relevant to integrate with a CMS, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Even if you're not using our system, we'd be happy to learn about that use case and what the industry is interested in. So yeah, again, you know, I can restate it, but no matter the system, we're really happy to talk about your requirements and determine the best path forward together. So really just kind of summarizing as we're getting to the end of all this, just really wanted to talk about everything we covered so far. Now, a CMS, it's going to satisfy the needs of any level of user. And again, there's different applications, different CMS systems available for your different levels of functionality, requirements, and all of that. But in general, they should, come in here, standardized practices, reduce human errors, migrate to a paperless type of workflow if that's what you're looking for, lower your operational costs, of course, provide regulatory compliance, automation of workflows, and then again, instant retrieval during an audit. These are some of the biggest points, and I think this is a summarized list of just those top pain problems that I see over and over and over again as I'm talking to people who haven't fully migrated to a more modernized solution. So definitely things to consider here. So moving forward, I'm going to take this time actually to dive into the questions and answers that we've seen so far. I have seen a few questions come in, so I'm going to dive in there and start answering those. Again, you should see the Q&A, the questions button at either the top or the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to answer, dive in there, ask any questions. You can also ask them directly. I think you can ask them anonymously, and if you don't want your name being associated with that. But yeah, again, I'll answer all these, and if there are any that don't get answered, we'll follow up with you guys afterwards. So we'll go ahead and dive into this first one. So I see this was an anonymously submitted one, and it says, how do I make absolutely sure that the CMS I select will cover all of my regulatory requirements? So yeah, that's great, and really, really good question. So first of all, you need to understand what your regulatory requirements are. You may, just because you're FDA regulated doesn't mean that you're going to have all of the I guess, extreme, detailed, concise requirements that somebody else who's FDA regulated may. I see people in R&D labs have different regulatory requirements than those in, obviously in production where they're packaging up drugs or something. So the first thing you need to do is understand your specific requirements, and then talk to the CMS provider. Again, like I said, a lot of these solutions you'll see are pre-validated. They're built on quality practices. I can think of a handful right away. And they have a lot of experience working with customers in those regulated environments. And they should be able to answer those questions and help you guys walk through those processes and just go through everything to ensure that the system's going to meet your needs. So first of all, you do want to have a little bit of an understanding of where you are and what your requirements are. But most of the time, the actual CMS provider is going to jump on the opportunity to help you solve that issue. So that shouldn't be something to worry about. All right, cool. We have one. Would like more information on downloading a task to a tablet. Do you now have the capability to download tasks to a tablet by way of download screen? I said that it would be a very big sale to a new customers to have an app that emulates a DPC device, so that we can take advantage of the tasks to be used on the tablet cell phone platform. Thanks for your time. Okay, great. Yeah, this is actually a really good question. So I can say off the bat right now. If I understand this correctly, you're looking to use similar to like this is going to be ProCal specific, but if you're looking to download tasks similar to that you do to SEM54, where you can go in, select specific test point groups, send those down based on dates and all of those things. It doesn't work just like that yet. Right now, we do have the ability with the mobile workstations in order to send those tasks down, where it creates a database file and sends it down that way. And you can use the querying and get this all in I guess in a similar format. This exact types of functionality does not exist yet, but I'm just reading this, and like I said, we are always listening to our customers. We're always enhancing our application. We're always taking customer feedback and taking these things in for newer and better and bigger releases in the future. So this is definitely something I can see basis functionality existing for today. And I'll definitely, right after we get off this, take this over to my engineering team. I have your name, so we'll definitely follow back up with you on this specific request. Another anonymous one here. If I wanted to have a hybrid system, can I print out a worksheet? Yeah, of course. So this is again where there's tons of different ways to, and this is most likely going to be applicable to any CMS, so I can stay at that level. But there are multiple ways where obviously you can go right into the application. You have your as found, your as left areas of reporting information, and you can just type in your results that way. You may be able to do it through a documenting calibrator or an offline tablet or something like that too. But in this type of scenario, say you wanted to keep paper in the mix and you didn't want to shake things up too much, I know that ProCal can, and I think I have seen this in a few other CMS applications as well, where you can take that specification and take your assets, query on what's coming due, and then just hit a button and download paper worksheets where they'll tell you all of your inputs, here's my nominal input, here's what my desired output is, here are my high-low ranges for each individual test point, and give a little line on the lines for as found and as left right on that paper worksheet. Additional things like what test standards were used, pass, fail, notes, comments, and all that too. But there definitely are, at least in ProCal, and I think I can think of a few other applications too. There is the ability to print out paper worksheets and use those to keep paper in the mix. And I can even think of, we have done this recently, is customized paper worksheets for customers, where if they wanted additional information or it to be displayed or outlined differently to make it more, familiar for their technicians coming from, paper-based practices. We've done that, and we've done it recently too. So definitely something to consider. Good question. Another question here, would enjoy a weekly or bi-weekly Zoom meeting to cover more deeper usage for features we have but are not using. Are you planning on doing more trainings online like this? And great question, Roger. I appreciate that. Good to see you. And yeah, definitely. So this is also something, we're more than happy to dive a little deeper in. You're just getting my brain flowing a lot right now. We are definitely, I can say certainly, this is going to be the first of a new relaunch for our webinars. So some of you may have been on the webinars previously. We're excited to announce we're going to start having these more frequently, more reliably, and have them a little more detail oriented. So definitely we're going to see more of those, moving forward. But this is also an idea where if there is going to be something more frequent, even more frequently focused specifically on our application's functionality, this could be something where we could maybe set up another type of session, a lunch and learn, or something where it doesn't necessarily have to be specific to your company, but more of like just a free general brainstorming session. So I really like what you're suggesting here, and let me talk to my team about this. This could be something very helpful. Cool. All right. Looks like that's actually all the questions that we got so far. So I'll give you guys another 30 seconds or so to throw in any additional questions. Again, many of you obviously probably received quite a few emails from me setting this up. So you can always email me directly, ask me any questions that way as well. But yeah, if there are no other questions, I would just really like to say, thank you again. Thank you everybody for your time today. I really hope that this session has helped you broaden your understanding in why we have helped others move away from legacy practices and into the future of calibration management. So again, like I said, moving forward, we're going to continue to host these webinars for those of you that are interested in learning more about adopting a calibration management solution and how that can change your day for the better, whether it's going to be more generalized like this, or maybe we'll have specific sessions, tailored specifically around, really direct functionality that might be relevant to those in a regulated space, those types of things. Just keep an eye out for that in the future and additional announcements. So I can just, again, say that myself and the full Prime Technologies team, you can see our contact information here. We're really happy to have any conversations. We're always open for phone calls, emails, anything like that at all, anything you can think of. Again, I'm really thankful for your attendance and your time and the participation from everybody today. And I hope you guys have a great day. Thank you so much.